informing certain people and what their policies were on certain, contact moderation. And instead of giving us that information, which they're required to under Texas law, they sued us in California, hoping to get a federal judge to stop us.
That's right. I'm sorry. Yes.
And she dismissed their case, which is the right answer. We have a right to that information. If they want to operate in Texas, they can sue us in the Texas court, and we'll go to a court on Texas law. And I have a feeling they're not going to answer our questions anyway. So if they don't, we'll be back in court, but we'll be in a Texas court.
So, that'll be nice. So you're, I forgot, they were suing you, right?
They didn't want to answer
Twitter was. Correct. Yeah. I forgot about that. I was thinking about our lawsuit, Texas lawsuit that is coming against them.
Yes. So right. we did sue Google. We have sued Facebook, but we have not sued Twitter. All we've done is start asking them questions, and they got very uncomfortable answering very simple questions about their policies.
And what are the questions that you wanted to ask that they didn't want to tell you?
So we wanted to understand what their policies were. If they're out telling people they have a socially, that you have free speech on your account, we wanted to understand what their policies were and how they were implementing those policies. Very simple questions about their actual practices and what they say their practices are. That's it.
Well, that would be nice to know. That is the biggest problem. I mean, Ken, we're now the largest conservative subscription site in the world at the Blaze. And they are always messing with our algorithms. They are always screwing us. It's not just Twitter, it's all of them. And they will never give us a straight answer. They'll say, gee, no, nothing's going on. Look, here's the evidence. We can show it to you. Just tell us what we did so we can repair it or argue about it. But they won't give us information, and it seriously impacts our business. Seriously impacts.
Absolutely, it does. And they hold themselves out as a place where you can get, that there is free speech. So they're holding themselves out one way, and they're operating another way. And so we want to understand that because consumers in Texas have a right to not be treated unfairly or have some type of deceptive trade practice done on them. And right now, we have serious concerns about some of these tech companies.
I sincerely hope, and I imagine you are, but I sincerely hope that Texas will stand behind its voices in the media, because I wonder every day how many more days, weeks, or months we have before they just completely destroy us and say, create your own internet.
Well, one of the things they're trying to do with me is they're trying to get the legislature to defund my ability to go fight them. And, of course, I have no doubt they'll try to run somebody against me that will have lots of money to try to knock me out before I can finish up my lawsuit. So they have so much money they can fund opponents, and they can fund, other people to come try to take my budget away so I can't go fight them. That's what I've been fighting all such long, to keep money so that I can fight these guys. And it's been a war inside the legislature.
Ken, let me talk about something else. I don't know what the federal government is supposed to do if they're not supposed to protect private business from attacks from outside of the country and inside of the country. Yesterday, when the White House said, this is a private matter with the Colonial Pipeline, and, if they decide to pay the ransom, then that's their business. I mean, I've never heard an official ever say we negotiate with terrorists. How is this not the primary responsibility of the U.S. government to protect businesses from things like this?
Well, look, new warfare is exactly what we're talking about. Cybersecurity attacks are how these countries and these terrorist nations can ruin your country without ever walking across your border. And that's exactly the types of things that the federal government should be protecting us against, because nobody else has the resources to take on other governments and who else is going to do it? So it's ridiculous for them to say that's a private issue when in reality, if they aren't going to do anything about it, these countries will destroy us from the outside in without ever firing a shot.
If Texas main infrastructure was threatened, let's say the electricity grid, which is separate, from everybody else. If that was being threatened and what happened to us was from a cyber hacking, would you have recommended to anyone that they pay the ransom? That the Texas power grid pays the ransom?
No, I mean, we would do everything possible to try to prevent that. The problem we have is that, and I've dealt with this with cities who've had this happen to them, somehow they've gotten into their backup, so you don't even have a way to go back and back it up, and so it's going to be tremendous cost that they have no way to pay if they don't pay the ransom. So it's a really awful situation that we need to find a way to address proactively, or we're going to see more and more of this.
Bad. Okay, one last thing. In Plano last weekend, a police officer was standing right there as an anarchist, pulls out a gun and points it at a Plano citizen, and the police do nothing. I never thought I would see this in Texas. What's happening?
You know, I am such a fan of law enforcement and defending them because they have so much pressure on them. They get criticized for doing their job, and they have a really hard job and have to make split-second decisions. But when you let somebody, these groups, just come in and take over a highway, you create a tremendous risk for them because they can get hit by a car. You create tremendous risk for the people in the car, and it's against the law. And the police should enforce the law. And these people have every right to protest, just not in the middle of a highway. They may be right. They may be right about what they're protesting. Even if they're not, they have a right to protest under our Constitution, but not in the middle of a highway in a busy intersection.
So what happened in Plano? What happened? How did that break down?
They just let them stay, and they arrested the guy that was complaining about it. And it just seems kind of bizarre to me that the very guy that was being held up in traffic and complaining about it, the guy that gets charged, and everybody else can break the law and they get to no consequence.
I mean, this is like how it started in Portland. What are we as a state going to do? Can you do anything with the local? I mean, I really appreciate the fact that we are bifurcated as governments, but what can you do? Anything?
All I can do is speak out and say this is wrong, because these cities, they hire a city manager who hires a police chief. It's all local control. It's all based on the voters in that city as to whether they're going to allow this to continue. So I can speak out, but I don't have the authority to go tell the police chief, hey, you need to follow the law.
I don't think I have ever seen a time in America where we need the individual, and we don't even need experts in this department or expert in this department. I mean, it helps, but we need people with just basic common sense. No, that's wrong. You're going to arrest those people and not arrest that person. You know what I mean? We just need common sense. We need the average Joe in office right now.
You know, you say that. Somebody told me I was courageous for speaking out. I said, it's not courageous. It's common sense. Anybody would think it's a bad idea, I think, to protest in the middle of a busy intersection by a freeway. It makes no sense. Why would you allow that when there's so many other places you could protest safely?
You know, I've told this story a million times, but I think about it almost every day. When I was over in Auschwitz, I talked with my family to a woman who had been one of the righteous among the nations. When she was very young, she saved Jews and hid them in her barn of her family, and saved a lot of people. And I asked her, I said, how do you water the seed of righteousness in people so when those tough times come, they're ready? And she said to me, you misunderstand. The righteous didn't suddenly become righteous. They just didn't go over the cliff with the rest of humanity. And that's why what you're saying here about courage is so true. You just have